right, good afternoon. We'll call the committee whole meeting to order. For adoption of the agenda, we won't be having an in-camera meeting today. We'll be deferring that to next week after the council meeting. With that, motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. No delegation minutes or departmental reports. We have a staff report from our marina supervisor there to relate to the boat launch night work coming up. Mr. Fraser, do you wish to add anything further to your report at this time? Okay, go ahead.
I just have a question through
Yes.
the mayor to staff. Al, if the weather on December 13th is just really, really foul, are you still going to carry on with the work?
Yeah.
So we don't have to give you an alternate date for approval? You're going to do it that day come hell or low water?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? Seeing none, a recommendation?
I move that we allow them to work on December 13th.
Okay. Second. All right, so any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, then we're going to be looking here at our strategic plan, starting at page 7. This is the 2012-2014 plan, and staff have brought it forward with a cover memo as well. In the plan itself, there's a status column that indicates where they're at on various items. And so at this point, it's just for receipt and any further discussion.
Do you want us to move receipt now?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll move receipt of that.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of receipt then? Carried. Councillor Grant?
Yeah, and then I handed Richard a note at the end of last meeting regarding marking our trailways, mapping, and what I'm thinking in terms of is the 4x4 post with a little thing like the regional district does on some of our walkways. Richard had mentioned to me one time about maybe even looking at putting GPS tracking things in so you can go by with your smartphone and deal with them. My thoughts on that were to start at our circle in downtown so that you could go from there and have different distances, but all of that to be determined. And I noticed that is in our plan on page 10 to do. So I was hoping that if we go over to page 47, I believe it is, where we've got $200,000 left over from projects to be dealt with in the next budget cycle, that we could use some, all, or part of that for.
Well, that would be, subject to budget
that.
discussions. We would need to know an amount. Not only on page 10, but also page 14, there's indication of mapping.
Yep, that's right.
So staff perhaps can comment at this point where they'd see that kind of request going. Whether that would go through the budget process, the capital budget process, or whether it would be something that staff would bring back to.
Something, it would definitely flow out of the item we have on page 14, which is mapping some of the town current trails. Now we're starting that work in the northeast portions of Comox. I think what you're looking for, and perhaps I can have a discussion with you a little more as to what we're looking at doing, and maybe put a budget figure for that.
Yes.
And then figure where we could put that into the work plans.
Okay.
So we can maybe do that between now and the
Sure.
next committee meeting.
Yep, absolutely. Because what I'm thinking of is if we start at our main circle, we're actually going to be drawing people to our downtown, which is helping to vitalize that as well. And many of those trails are there, but if you didn't know how to get, say, from the marina over to McDonald Wood, over to Spit on the trailways, you'd never find it in 100 years if you didn't know where they were. And yet there's some beautiful places you can go through there. So that's where I'm coming from.
All right, so staff probably would need a motion to that effect to bring a staff report back.
Or do you want to?
I think if Councillor Grant and I have a discussion first about what we're looking at doing, and maybe I could bounce it off staff informally, and then we can look at where we can fit it in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Is that okay with council then? All right. Councillor Fletcher.
Just while we're on that, maybe staff haven't been so far, but I just continually get asked by people whether they can access the Bay property or the Stubbs property, and whether it's walking on the beach at Eagle saying, can I go through there? Am I allowed to? Or whether it's from Orchard Park Drive, and I'm just wondering what the answer
Except for the signs that say keep on private property.
Well, we're I guess, two things. One is that we're just getting a report that will be coming forward to council on, we've asked for a building assessment on the rental properties down there. That'll come forward, and we'll also, as part of next year's work plan, is kind of identifying how we see that park rolling out. But yes, the public is invited to visit that space. They're asked to respect the privacy of the people that live in the cabins, but it is a park, and we hope to increase its visibility next year and accessibility.
It's also included on the material that was at the open house in terms of the works that are being done, which are on display at the rec center right now. So. Okay. Anything further on the strategic plan? CAO, you did author the cover memo, so I don't know if you have anything further to add on.
Oh, just that generally we're on track. We've accomplished I think a fair amount this year, but there still is a lot to do. Even on some of the things we've accomplished, I think we still want to look at refinements for some of those priorities. So full steam ahead.
All right. Councilor Price?
Where are we with the urban forest plans? That it's in the works, isn't it?
We've received a draft report of that as well. We're still in 2012, so we're still on track, and we hope to get a revised and final document to council as well. So we are on track on that one as well.
Do you have a time frame for that?
It'll either be it's one of either the next committee of the whole or the one after that.
The one in December?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Nothing further at this point. We'll just carry on. There's lots of work to be done, and staff will report on an ongoing basis as those things ensue. All right, so moves us to the next item on the agenda, which is the Ontario contract amendment for organics.
And that recommendation?
Second.
The recommendation is to endorse the contract amendment with Ontario that would increase household garbage collection costs by $1.25 per household per month starting February 2014 in order to separately collect organics for the regional district platform. Discussion on that? Yes.
I'm just wondering if we're going to separate out the kitchen waste and then haul it up to Cumberland and mix it with yard waste, why don't we do that at the curbside?
You?
Don and Shelley are part of the discussion, so maybe I'll speak there.
The answer is we're not paying $65 a ton tipping fees on our yard waste now. And if we take the yard waste out and do that, then that adds a considerable amount of cost, right? We collect about 1,400 tons of yard waste, so multiply that by $65 a ton.
So, sorry, where's the yard waste going now?
So the yard waste is handled by Emterra and its subcontractor out by the airport, and so they process it for much less than the $65 a ton.
Well, I'm just wondering why then the regional district wouldn't be interested in us mixing it for them. You know, I mean, and then they could reduce the tipping fees even less.
It was their suggestion that we not give them our yard waste, because we explained the dilemma, the $65 a ton dilemma, and we basically said, look, we can't afford $65 a ton. We're not paying anything near that now. And what they came back to us, they visited Mr. Watt at his site at the airport. They talked to him about what he was processing. And what they concluded was that the regional district already has sufficient yard waste coming into their landfill site for the pilot program. So they encouraged us to look at this option. And this option would probably involve a split truck. One garbage truck that's divided into compartments. One compartment, the larger one, would pick up garbage. The other would pick up the organics.
Okay. All right. Anything further on that recommendation, Councilor Price?
Yes, is there any expectation that this would be expanded to multifamily at some point? I know there's people in multifamily who now would like to do the recycling, and I see that they would...
But your finances got his hand
At this point, the regional district and the contractor who's running the pilot program were encouraging us not to consider that. It's going to be critical in terms of the output they get, the input that the kitchen scraps and organics they're receiving are satisfactory. So there are certain things that cannot go in there, like plastic bags. Even if they're biodegradable and compostable, if they want a high-quality product at the other side, there can't be any plastics going in. So in order for that to work, you pretty much need containers that are coming from a single household. If you have a multifamily facility, they typically share containers. So right now, for instance, if you put out a recycling bin for collection and there are materials in there like glass bottles that aren't acceptable, and Terra puts a sticker on it that says, we can't take this because there's materials in here that are unacceptable, and they leave it on your curb, and then you go out and you find it there, and you have to deal with it. In a multifamily situation, it's very hard to figure out, well, who put the inappropriate material in there, and who's going to take it out, and who's going to get rid of it in the garbage. So when we had our initial meeting with the regional district and the contractor doing the pilot program, they strongly recommended we focus on single-family homes and duplexes, where there's going to be one container at the curb from a specific household.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Grant and then Toucher.
Yeah, I notice on the next page, on page 19, we talk about the containers and $200,000 for containers in the garbage. That's on page 19 that you talk about that. So we're going to do a one-year pilot project here. What is the situation with containers during the pilot project time? Surely we're not going to buy containers for people.
If we want good participation, what we're hearing from other communities is that you've got to provide the containers. And our own experience with blue bags versus blue boxes was when we switched to the blue bins and actually supplied roughly 4,000, however many there were in the day, but it was a considerable expense. But it yielded a tremendous increase in the recyclables that were collected. So the reality is, if we want good participation, yes, we should be considering supplying the bins. I have every expectation that the regional district will continue the service over the long term. What's been explained to us is that the reason it's a pilot project is not because it's new technology. Technology is used in other communities. What makes it a pilot project is they need to figure out basically how much buy-in there'll be in the valley, both in terms of how much in organics will be put at the curb and collected, right, per household, and also is there a market for the compost after it's processed at the far end. So it's almost a marketing pilot, right, as much as anything else. It's not really a technological pilot. So although the regional district isn't promising to continue beyond a year, certainly their staff hope that's the case.
Right?
Okay, so, but we would be, you're suggesting then that we probably should buy the containers, but there's a chance that they would stop the project after a year, and then we would be out $200,000 for containers. Is that,
Possibly.
that's what you're saying?
I'm not asking for authority at this point in
No.
time to
Buy the
spend on the
containers. I know. Okay.
Councillor Fletcher?
Just a comment on that, I mean, through the solid waste management plan, it's one of the major goals to divert the organics from the landfill. So I don't see this as going away. I think we're just at the very beginning of where this is going to go. So we absolutely can't say that, but I can
Yeah,
assure you
that's-
it's a primary intent of the solid waste management plan. And just further to that, on page 18, you talk about 2 grocery stores in the hospital possibly getting into the organics as well?
No,
No? It's not what I'm reading there?
2 grocery stores,
Okay. And why not the hospital then?
because most of their waste isn't food waste.
Come on, you mean that the hospital.
The grocery stores are putting out a lot of food waste. What's coming from the hospital is assorted garbage of various kinds, and it's run through their compactor, and they only take it up to the landfill twice a month. So if there was a large part of that was organic, they wouldn't, in the heat of the summer, be able to leave it in the compactor for 2 weeks.
But they have been approached to see if they want to participate or?
No. No, I was just mentioning where we have compactors, and 2 of the 3 compactors we believe are primarily food, are food scraps.
Okay. Councillor Price.
And just further to that, will we be having the conversation with the grocery shops? You make a very good case that financially it's in their interest to go with the organic program. Unless somebody joins the dots, they may not do it. And there must be a tremendous amount of organics come out of the large grocery places.
In fact, I understand that the new Thrifty store, the regional district staff have told us the new Thrifty store comes with 2 compactors, so they've already designed and built ready for organics program. We want to talk to them, and in due course we will, but there's a few things. We need to know the start date, we need to finalize what materials are acceptable, we need to have a bylaw in place that offers them some cost savings if they make their lives more complicated by separating the food scraps from all the other garbage they have. So there's a few things to get lined up before this happens. We have time before February.
Well, it's great, and I know that there's a lot of people who are excited about this. Door knocking, I certainly heard from people it was a real priority, so I think it's here to stay, and great that we're starting.
All right. Anything further on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Certainly that's been an experience in Nanaimo, Saanich, and other places which have done pilots and moved forward throughout the more permanent program. Okay, utility rate increases for 2013. Our Director of Finance has brought forward a series of recommendations on water, sewer, and storm drain, and sanitary sewer connections. So there is a recommendation, but I'll ask our Director of Finance if he wishes to make any further comments regarding his report at this time.
I guess to sum it up, we're looking at a $20 a ton increase in regional district landfill tipping fees. We're looking at an additional cost of the organics program that we'll be paying to Terra for collection. So those are the 2 factors primarily driving garbage costs up. The regional district's bulk water rate is going up January 1st. The regional district sewer requisition is going up for 2013. And both the bulk water and the sewer requisition are the majority of our costs when it comes to our water and sewer system. So our costs are going up, and unfortunately we need to pass that on to the customers.
The staff are looking for recommendations that these bylaws be brought forward to council for first, second, and third reading. And there's 4 bylaws.
I'll make that recommendation as to all 4.
Second.
Thank you. So bylaw 1738 to 1742 will come to council for first, second, and third readings should this motion pass. So that's moved and seconded. Discussion, yes.
Yeah, and I just, just going back to the report, which is all part of it, on the sewer rates, I was just wondering what are the major projects that are on the horizon that, it mentions that our requisition will be going up 9.75% next year, and that by 2022 it will be a steep climb.
Well, we have 3 representatives on the sewer.
What do you want to do?
Plus the CAO also is involved at a technical level, so we would like to answer that. Keith?
Don can back me up on some of this, but in the longer term, you're essentially looking at duplicating the treatment plant that we have out there right now. That's the longer version. The Courtney pump station needs to be replaced, rebuilt. There's the Jane Strait station that needs work, plus
A new one down at the bottom of Dock Little Road.
Dock Little that takes the line off the beach and takes an internal route. So it's estimated at about $70 million worth of work.
And this will include getting the line off the beach?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's Greenwood, there's Hudson.
Yeah, it's a whole host of, those are capital projects, some that are required for growth, but there's essentially infrastructure rebuild that we are responsible for as well.
So do we all commonly pay, or is there some reflection if a project benefits 99% Comox or 99% Courtney, do we all pay equally?
Our requisition is based on flows. So the regional district takes their total costs, less their recoveries from the Comox band and CFB Comox, and the net of that is divided between the city and the town based on relative sewer flows. So they basically look at metered flows. So in my financial report on page 46, you'll see that I track month by month our percentage of total sewer flows. And that's important because if our percentage is going up, then so is our share of the total requisition.
But if
As
a line,
it happens, it's been going down slightly over time.
but if an additional line is required solely for one community so it can expand, we would all jointly pay. I guess we'd all make the decision to whether that line goes in or not.
It's a joint system, and inevitably, because Courtney's further from the treatment plant than we are, there are more lines going to them, perhaps, than to us. But the reality is that we're part of a joint system.
So our flow share is about 36%.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think a partial answer to Barbara's question is that, that we have DCCs in place, so if the growth occurs in Courtney, Courtney's going to collect those DCCs that go to pay for that growth. The problem is that, of course, is that if the line has to get in first and we have to borrow the money, then collectively we're all paying the interest on the money. No?
And DCCs aren't funding all of the work in the stretch.
Not
A fraction.
and we doubled the DCCs.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. So when I was reading this, I sort of came to the same conclusion that Barbara did, which is I wanted a little more detail on what that was, and it sort of brought to mind to me that by the time you combine our water, sewer, and garbage collection, and roughly it's $55 a year, that'll be fine until our tax bills go out, and then people are going to start questioning because, as you know, they don't just look at water, sewer, or garbage, they just look at the whole bill and go, oh, it went up X number of dollars. It seems to me that a little bit of explanation when we do this as to what some of these projects are, so that, if we don't even know sitting at this table, some of us, what these are, the public surely doesn't know why we're doing it. And so, the way this is worded in here, it says there's increases, says the increases are big and they're going to go on for a long time. I think we need to talk about some of those bigger projects and some of the rationale behind why we're raising the rates, because it appears to me it's going to go on for some time too. So, if we can get the public on board, we won't get all the questions as much at the...
Well, certainly we can explain the $18 a year for the organics program. The
Certainly in
water-
the sewer one.
The water and then the sewer, yes, there'll have to be some education. The
Yep.
regional district does provide information. And as we did last year with our tax notices, we will show the breakdowns as much as we can.
And even reminder in the newsletter.
25 cents, I think, of every dollar we spend is on water and sewer.
Yeah.
Every tax.
But you know what happens when the tax notices come out and, they're up and they want to know why. And water and sewer are contentious already, so
Yeah, and essentially you're looking at a user pay system here for sewer and water and garbage, as much as we can recover. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. All righty, we are now at the third quarter financial report at page 39 for receipt.
Second.
Receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any questions arising, comments? Director of Finance provided his summary of where we're at at the end of the third quarter. Seems to be going according to plan. Yes, Councilor Fletcher.
Hi, just on page 45, we have 2 line items that reference affordable housing reserve. And your staff can just give me some clarity as to why there are 2 line items on that.
Our sources of revenue are separate. When a developer gives us money for the affordable housing reserve, it's considered a segregated, think of it as a trust fund. You're taking money that's conditional, and so if down the road we decided we wanted to move it and use it for something else, we could not, okay? Whereas money that came from our budget came from general taxation. With the permission of the Inspector of Municipalities, we can pull out of one reserve and move over to the other. Okay? And so our auditors have insisted that when it comes to financial statement reporting of the affordable housing reserves, because some of the money is contributed from developer and some is coming from our own budget, we have to separate the two.
Would it be helpful in the future just to indicate which is which on the balance sheet? That'd be, I assume the one at the top is the town's fund?
Is the developer's share.
Was that the one?
Oh, no, you're right. That's our share.
Yeah, so one's a reserve and one is not.
Well, they're both reserves, but it'd be just helpful for future councils looking at this to know which is which. Good question? Yes.
While we're on the subject of reserves, in our strategic planning session last year, when we talked about doing this boardwalk or whatever you want to call it down on the waterfront, we raised the marina rates. Are we putting money aside from those marina rates? I mean, I noticed in the waterfront walkway reserve we have $307, but I'm sure that's not.
That was a donation.
No, that goes back years. We haven't made our capital reserve contributions yet for 2012. We'll be doing that in December.
But there will be money coming from those marina rate
Yes.
increases that are going to go into a reserve?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Anything further on the financial report? We've received it, so we'll move on. And then finally, that the committee received the memo on the Community Works Fund.
Move receipt.
Second.
Receipt then, all those in favor? Motion carried. Discussion? Questions? Comments? Councilor Price?
Yeah, and I also noticed the 200,000 at the bottom of page 47.
That's why I got mine in first.
And it seems like a good sum for the organics project. I don't know whether it's a coincidence or it does seem that would be a good use for it.
There might be a question around eligibility, but staff, any comments on that?
In my mind, there is a question about eligibility, but other communities have done it. So if you turn to page 56, you'll see that eligible expenditures include rolling stock bins or other containers and automation equipment. And our mandatory reporting measure is just the number and type of containers. So I guess you could say these are bins. Okay. The thing that makes it a little bit questionable in my mind is the ideas of the Community Works Fund is supposed to fund studies and capital projects that are property of the town. And so we're going to actually be handing these things out, dropping them off in your household. And so from my point of view, I'm not going to be carrying any asset on the books because I don't have physical control over it, right? So from an accounting point of view, I do wonder if we could use it for these. That being said, I preface by saying other communities have done it.
Yeah, I know when we've gone to FCMs, we've picked them up from other communities with actual labels on them, like City of Toronto and so on and so forth. So would that be one approach to say, here's your bin down at Comox? I mean, obviously somebody moves, it takes a while, you're not going to track it down, but that perhaps what other communities have done.
Well, I know in the Gulf Islands, they tried to do a low-flow toilet one with, and they were told that it was not eligible because they didn't own the infrastructure.
Right.
So same premise, right? Yeah, but I would note that the Trailway one fits marvelously in every portion, and it's actually a tier. It fits everywhere, and in our strategic plan as well.
Well, we'll put that arm wrestle later.
But I just throw that out there.
All right? Yes.
And just on the same vein there, the new admin vehicle that we've been looking at purchasing, and I understand it to be a vehicle that would perhaps meet the criteria.
Yes. Richard and I are negotiating on my car.
Yes, if we get confirmations, excuse me, that our electrical supply is okay at Town Hall, we'll look at getting a fully electric vehicle and putting the order in. So we may be accessing another $15,000 out of these funds for it, because our current budget identifies half the cost for a hybrid vehicle to be accessed from gas tax funds, but we would be eligible for the full cost out of these funds.
Thanks.
All right. Good. Anything further on this report? It will form further discussion for a capital budget going forward. And so all those in favor of the receipt then? We did that? All received. And as I mentioned, no in-camera meetings, so there's nothing further on the agenda. Motion to adjourn will be in.
Second.
In favor? Motion carried.